Take it away, David.
All right, good morning everyone. I'm going to throw a little monkey wrench in it. I'll talk a little about security, but instead of talking a lot about security, because I'll be doing that at the luncheon and then the lunch and learn, I'm going to talk a little bit about me so you know why you might want to listen to me. Because hey, I could be anybody wandering in off the street with no knowledge at all and just pretending. It's easy to do. A lot of people hang a shingle out and say they're security experts or computer experts, and they've managed to turn one on. So why would you want to listen to what I have to say? Well, my background starts quite a long time ago. I was born and raised down in South Florida. I was born in a place called Miami Beach. That makes me very, very rare. People go to Miami Beach to die. Most of the hospitals down there don't even have a maternity room. They have a geriatric, several floors of geriatric services. They don't have maternity. They do have, there's a couple, but most don't. It's really weird. The only place that's more rare than that, or maybe just about equal, is Key West, Florida with birth. Very few people are born there. So that makes me pretty rare. I started that back in the 50s. I lived in a place called Hialeah. The only claim to fame for Hialeah, it has a racetrack. They race horses there. People that know the horse track, most of them usually have lost some money there. Life proceeded pretty good as a kid. I had a great time in the 60s. Then my father passed. Life kind of changed for me, and I ended up hitting the road at a pretty young age and hitchhiked to New York City, and lived in New York City on my own until I was 17. At 17, I decided, hey, I need an education. I mean, I kind of skipped high school, skipped junior high school. I've been living in the streets of New York City. That's an education unto itself, but it's not one that's going to get you a job. So I decided I should join the service, and I looked around at the different services, because if you're going to commit yourself to something, you better make sure you commit yourself to the right one. So I looked at the Army, and the Army was willing to teach me how to use a gun and how to shoot really well. Remember, this is the tail end of Vietnam. I decided, well, I already knew how to use a gun and didn't want to learn how to use it better. I thought that was kind of, duplicate. I looked at the Marines, and they were even more intense on the shooting and charging at the beaches. And I was used to surfing towards beaches, I didn't want to get into fighting on the beaches. So I decided that wasn't such a great idea. I looked at the Air Force. That was pretty cool because they get to fly planes. So the problem was I don't have 20/20 vision. So I couldn't fly a plane, and other than that, they get to retreat at 600 miles an hour. That's cool, leave quick. But they don't teach you electronics, and that's really what I wanted to learn. They teach people how to change boxes, and a very small amount of the people that join to do electronics go into depot repair, which is where they actually repair the boxes. I figured the odds of getting into depot repair weren't great, so I skipped that. And I looked at the Navy, and the Navy is interesting. They actually teach you electronics a little differently. When you're 2,000 miles out at sea and something breaks and you don't have a repair part for it, but it has to work. Take the radar on a ship. Got to have the radar working. Whether you have parts for it or not, you better figure out how to make it go. So they teach you electronics engineering at the lowest level for electronic repair, so that in the case of an emergency, you can take something else apart, not related to a radar, use the parts out of it, and get the radar going so you can get to shore and get the right parts. Now that fit in my scale of things. I got to learn how to do electronics. So I did that. Of course, the military is kind of a strange place. There's the right way, the wrong way, and the military way. Anybody who's been around the military knows that statement is true. So at the very tail end of my service, I joined for 6 years to get that electronics training. And it's equivalent to an electronics engineering degree, but without all the nice stuff that you get in college. All the fluff. They don't have time for that. You get 8 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week electronics training for 15 months. You learn electronics, but not much else. Still can't spell, can't write a paragraph, but that's a whole separate issue. So at the tail end of my service, I had been stationed on what's called a large slow target. It's a flat bottom ship that they use for running up the beaches. I spent 4 years on that one. Yeah, I'm not spending any more time on this thing. But I only had 1 year left in the service, and they said, well, you don't have enough time to get a shore tour. I'm like, okay, now you can kind of talk me into re-enlisting, and they did. I went to shore, and of course the military is a very strange piece, and they went, you have a TV, right? And I'm like, yeah, I have a TV. And you can fix the TV? I'm like, yeah, I can fix the TV. I went, great, you're a chief engineer in charge of broadcast television studio. At that point, I'd never seen, other than the little VCRs and stuff, I'd never seen the inside of a broadcast television studio. So I wandered into my new duty station, and I met a civilian that they hired to run the place who was retiring. And he went, "Let me guess, you've never seen a broadcast television studio?" I'm like, "Score one!" Exactly. So he said, "Well, you know electronics." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've been doing that a while." He's like, "Great, here's a book that's literally this thing, called it's the Handbook for Broadcast Television Engineers." He said, "Take this home, study it for a couple weeks, come back, and I'll teach you what you need to know before I leave," because he was gone in 3 months. I went home for 2 weeks, studied that book cover to cover, hit it hard, came back, and in 3 months he actually did turn me into a chief engineer. I rebuilt that studio a year later from the ground up with all new equipment. So I got a chance to really learn video at the lowest level, how it works, the nuts and bolts of it, not just recording it, but actually what goes on in it and why certain things work and why certain things look awful in video. So then I got out, went to work for Sony Corporation for a while, and did some more in video stuff, because that was kind of fun. And then I decided, you know, I really liked computers, because back at that point, when I was in the military, the Apple II, the Altair 8008, and a bunch of other computers, Heathkit came out, other ones, and we got to play with them. Now, on military pay, I couldn't buy one, because we lived it below the poverty line. I love the way that the U.S. government pays military folks. It's like, you get to get shot at, you get to do all the dirty work to protect everybody, and you get to live below the poverty line. So you learn how to stretch your money. Thank goodness today we have a lot of organizations that help the vets, but that's a separate topic. So I said, you know, this computer stuff, I had a lot of fun with it. I want to combine computers and video and my ability to build things. And I went into multimedia before they called it multimedia. And I produced over 50 projects that were used at trade shows. If anybody's ever done a trade show, you know that you've got one shot at a trade show. When the date comes for the trade show, you either have what you got to have, or the trade show goes on and you miss it. And let me tell you, when you're doing multimedia and contracts that are $50, $100, $200,000 or whack, you don't get paid unless you make the trade show. Now, we did over 50 of them. Never missed one. I will admit we came close more than once. Some of the ones we did, we actually were in the booth, in a little box, working on its computer software as the show started. And we were fixing bugs as they found them on the floor. But we still got the job done. So that gave me a chance to combine engineering and computers. I continued in the computer arena before people started doing networking. Back then everything was loosely connected. As we learned networking, I started doing data centers and started with security, because in a data center, the most important thing in a data center is security. So we started learning how, at the lowest level, how to install and get security going. Never really gave it much thought, continued that project for many, many years, working in data centers, building stuff, building embedded computers. And I've ended up with a very varied background in electronics engineering, computer science. Big chunks of it are self-taught. The engineering was actually hard-taught by the Navy. And that's how I've arrived at the security thing. I'm also the guy that most of my friends keep calling me up to help them when they get in trouble. And that's what started me in the Secured by Them business. Was a friend got hacked. I said, how do I avoid this? And I looked at it and said, oh, there must be somebody out there doing that kind of stuff for small businesses. And it turned out I was wrong. There wasn't anybody. I went to the SBDC, if you're familiar with them, the small business folks that are associated with Column College, and they'll do a free competitive analysis for you. If you've got a small business and you're not using their services, you're making a big mistake. You've already paid for their services with your taxes. You might as well take advantage of it. And they've got a lot of services for small business. Anyway, I had them do a competitive analysis, and they came back and they said, oh, you must be mistaken. There's got to be people out there doing this. It's too critical. And they came back to me a month later and went, no, there's nobody in that slot. There's people doing big business, medium business, nobody's touching small business. Here I am. Went ahead and tackled it. Anyway, I'll be talking to you at the end of the month. If you ever need something built, it's the other business I have, designed by them. If you need something built that you can't buy, and help your home or help your business, I can create that for you. So, thank you very much. If you have any questions,
think it all, that kind of background experience, he was definitely well qualified for what he does. All right. Thank you all very much.